The design of a VTuber is arguably the most important part of a VTuber's stream. Besides their personality, of course. A VTuber's visual identity rides on their model, more or less, and it's the first thing new viewers are exposed to before deciding whether they want to consume a VTuber's content. This is where memorable and iconic VTuber designs really shine. As an aspiring VTuber designer myself, I set out to find exactly what sets these iconic designs apart so that I may replicate some of the magic I've seen out of other VTubers. The right design for a talent has the ability to rake in thousands of viewers to their debut and maintain a sizable audience. So let's explore what makes a VTuber design memorable together. I've broken down my theory into 5 categories: silhouette, top half concentration, color palette, clarity, and iconic visual identity. Oh, and if you see this lovely lady at any point in the video, just know that she is an old design of my own creation. So if I'm using her as the what not to do example, just note that I'm not roasting some poor random VTuber. She is my first attempt at a VTuber persona, and I have learned a lot since I made her. Alright, here we go. Category 1. Distinguished silhouette. An easily recognizable silhouette is not only important for VTuber design, but character design as a whole. Having a strong silhouette helps the audience identify a character and immediately read some traits about them at a glance. Unique silhouettes also help with recognizability in branding and different art styles. The way you can test whether a design has a strong silhouette is to black out the full body of the character to hide all the details, so that the focus is on the outline of the figure. You want to see a lot of recognizable shapes in the shadow that allow the audience to immediately recognize the character. Some VTubers that have a very distinguished silhouette include Kureji Ali from Hololive Indonesia, Hakos Bales. How do you say this name? Hakos Bales from Hololive English, and Alira Pandora from Niji Sanji En. A trap that I see a lot of VTuber designs fall into, especially the live 2D ones, is to have an incredibly symmetrical design. This is because of the nature of working in live 2D. It is much easier to rig in live 2D when the illustrator uses the symmetry tool on the face of a model. However, I encourage illustrators to start adding more asymmetrical elements to their designs to balance the symmetrical face out a bit more. When designing Lorelei, I tried to make her as symmetrical as possible without the use of the symmetry tool because I didn't even know it existed yet. You can see when we focus on her silhouette, only a few elements stick out. The leaves and the ears are quite unique, but other than that, the majority of her silhouette is pretty bland. Category 2. Top half concentration. Whereas silhouettes aren't unique to VTubers, Category 2, what I'm calling top half concentration, is a pretty unique concept to VTuber designs. Since VTuber models are primarily used for streaming, they are very rarely zoomed out on their full body. Instead, VTubers are often seated with just the top half of their body visible. As such, VTuber designs should strive to keep the most important elements of their designs viewable from this position on the screen. If a design has its best elements in the bottom half, new audience members won't even be aware of the neatest parts of a VTuber's design unless they go out of their way to watch the VTuber's model reveal or scroll through their fan art. This is why it's always wise to concentrate the most interesting elements of a VTuber design up top and keep the bottom half of the design on the simpler side. The way you can test this category is super simple. You just have to cut the VTuber in half, throw away their legs, and ask yourself how much of the design has been lost by doing this. Is the design just as readable as before? Are there any elements of the character now lost? Some great examples of top half concentration include Mr. Rias from Niji Sanji En, Usada Pecora of Hololive Japan, and Laplace Darkness of Hololive Japan. Notice how when I remove their bottom half, little to no information about the character is lost. All the most important design elements have been kept to the top half and are only echoed in the bottom half of the design. This means that the audience won't be missing out on anything major when the VTuber is streaming in a half-body position. I would consider this my biggest mistake when I first designed Lorelei. I spent hours on these vines growing around the legs, and never repeated the idea in the top half of her design. The only way my audience would ever know of this detail about Lorelei is if they attended my debut or looked at my fan art tag. It's such a shame. Category 3, cohesive and interesting color palette. Though there are many more to learn about, the 3 types of color palettes we will focus on in this video are complementary, analogous, and monochromatic. I will use Estelle Leda of Hollow Stars Japan, Finana Ryugu of Niji-san GEN, and Minase Ryu of Hollow Stars Japan to demonstrate. Complementary color schemes are created by balancing colors from the opposite sides of the color wheel. Notice how Estelle Leda's blues and yellows are in perfect balance with each other, making the design really pop. Analogous palettes, like Finana Ryugu's, are created by selecting colors next to each other on the color wheel to create a pleasing and calming look. And finally, Minase Ryu is sporting a monochromatic scheme that takes shades from the same family of values on the color wheel, making his design look very focused and intentional. There are 2 tests I like to use when analyzing the colors of a VTuber's design. The first is to swatch the color palette of a VTuber design and see how the colors look next to each other. The colors should feel balanced and not competing for your attention or clashing too much. You can also test the values of a VTuber design to analyze the color placement. A good design has a balance of dark next to light that makes the design mesh in black and white just as much as in color. Since I did not have a particular strategy when selecting the color scheme for Lorelei, her design is not as effective as it could be. To make the colors mesh together, I ended up desaturating the colors a lot, and it muddied the whole look. I wish I fully committed to the red and green found in her color palette for the complementary look. Category 4, clarity. Clarity in character design is one of those concepts that is both super important and hard to achieve without falling into generic territory. Clarity in the context of VTuber design is an umbrella term that entails several concepts. 1. A consistent theme and aesthetic throughout. 2. Every detail included in the design effectively contributes to conveying the artist's intended idea about the character. And 3. Easy to replicate in different art styles. A clear design will be easy to simplify for artists with a simpler style, wow, voice crack, and can be built upon by artists with a more complex style. Some questions you can ask to determine whether a VTuber design achieves clarity are: can you clearly identify 1 to 3 themes that the character design is trying to convey? Are there any elements to the design detracting or confusing the themes that you identified? Are the themes consistently found throughout the design? One more trick that can help you determine a design's clarity is to zoom far out on the character design and see how well the design holds up. Some great VTuber designs that excel in clarity are Gargura with her clear yet iconic cute shark from Atlantis look, Levi Alifa with her minimalist half demon, half human look, and Millie Parfait with her incredibly consistent cat, witch, and academia inspired look. Unfortunately for Lorelei, the themes I intended for her got very lost in the execution of her design. I will give you guys 3 seconds to guess what I was going for with this character. You ready? Okay, here they are. Yeah, I doubt many of you got all 3, especially the nymph part. Category 5, unique and iconic visual identity. Having a unique and iconic visual identity, in my opinion, is the most important part of a VTuber's design, and yet also the most subjective. Essentially, having an iconic visual identity means that the design not only stands out from the current VTuber characters out there, but the future ones too. This gives a character recognizability and longevity in a plethora of contexts. One pitfall to avoid when designing a VTuber with uniqueness in mind is to rely on clothing and accessories as the main source of identity for a character. This may cause a problem for a VTuber wanting other outfits for their model, illustrations, or music videos in the future. Instead, I recommend looking for opportunities to bake the unique elements into the design itself. Shiki's hair, Sana's tattoos, and Ina's tentacles and flaps are what come to mind for me. One very underutilized route to achieve a unique look as a VTuber is to forego the standard humanoid character and become an animal or beast like Debiru. Models taking inspiration from sources outside the VTuber sphere will also end up more unique oftentimes. Testing how unique a VTuber character is kind of challenging, but here's the method I have come up with. Describe your character to Google or another search engine like Pinterest's visual search and study the other characters that show up in the results. Then see if your character can stand out in the lineup of lookalikes. Some of my favorite examples of VTubers with their own unique and iconic visual identity are Kobo Kaneru of Hololive Indonesia, Azuchi Momo of Nijisanji Japan, Zentreya of VShoujo, Joe Rikichi of Nijisanji Japan, Magni Desmond of Holostars English, and am I allowed to say Crazy Ollie again? Now, Lorelei does not have any direct lookalikes in the corporate VTuber sphere, and I don't want to actively compare anyone in the indie scene to my old design out of respect. So, you'll just have to take my word for it that she looks like the knockoff version of several other existing VTubers out there. So I guess I'll just show you Lettuce from the anime Tokyo Mew Mew and call it a day. To sum things up, VTuber design, like any type of character design, can be quite complicated. It can be very difficult to excel in all of these categories at once, considering all designers have their own strengths and weaknesses. That being said, it's really neat to analyze the parts of VTuber design that are specific to VTubers. Finally, I just want to say I'm learning with you guys, so if you have any idea what makes a VTuber design memorable, please let me know in the comments. I'd love to have a discussion about this. If you want to learn more about the character design concepts discussed today, I will have a few videos from more experienced creators that delve deeper into the topics we covered, linked down in the description below. Alright. Time to go take my own advice. Take care, Bat Bunch.